Would you like to use webinars in your business, but you're not sure which platform to use? Well, in this episode of Quick Fix Friday, I'm going to dive into what's important with a webinar platform and give you some of my favorite platforms for webinars.
Hello, dreamers. Welcome to the Late Starters Club, giving you the inspiration, mindset, and tools you need to start something midlife and beyond. Remember, it's never too late to follow your dreams. First, a word from our sponsor, me. Are you feeling stuck in your business and aren't sure how to grow? Or maybe you're starting something new and just really don't know what strategy is going to work best for you. Well, then you might need my one on one coaching and consulting. I've personally helped businesses grow to the 6-figure mark and 7-figure mark. Whether it's really diving into your ads and seeing what's wrong, giving you hands on specific advice, or it's just taking a look at your overall strategy and giving you some recommendations for moving ahead. Just go to AndreaVall.com and go to the Consulting and Coaching tab for more information and packages that fit your needs. And now, back to our regularly scheduled program.
In episode 74, I talked to Dr. Edward, the healing vet, about how he started really growing his business with webinars and how he pivoted into using webinars. And over the course of his business, and actually also over the course of my business, I've used a lot of different webinar platforms. And I wanted to give you some tips on how to research and determine what's important to you in a webinar platform and go over some of my favorites. The biggest consideration is price. Obviously, you want something that isn't too expensive, but you also have to balance that with what kinds of features you want. One thing to note is that a lot of webinar platforms will talk about a monthly price, but you only get that particular price if you are paying for a full year of the platform. So you want to determine like how often are you going to have those webinars? Are you going to run them regularly? And I do suggest you run webinars regularly to grow and to get better at them. Another thing to consider with price is balancing that off with the features you really want. Because some of the platforms also have certain number of users. They also might do on demand versus just live webinars. So you have to really understand what you really need. Let me give you some of the top 4 considerations that I look at when I'm evaluating webinar software. Number 1 is what the registration page looks like. Because if you are driving cold traffic to your webinar landing page, you want to be able to customize it, you want it to look good, and you want to have some features that you can use to kind of showcase who you are and things like that. So take a look at what the registration page looks like and see if it feels like something you can live with or not. Number 2 is balancing how many attendees you can have live on your webinar. Because if you need just a smaller platform, that's going to be a big consideration. And it might be a consideration for how fancy you want it to look and how much you want to invest. Because if you are going to start out slower, you may want to get the less expensive webinar software so that you can grow and build and actually make some sales before making a big investment. Some webinar platforms have different pricing models for different numbers of attendees, and they might also have different restrictions around how many panelists they might be able to accommodate on the webinar. Another consideration is whether you're going to have live webinars only, or if you also need to allow for people to register for an on demand webinar. That webinar might play at certain times, maybe it's available right away. So you want to see if they can accommodate both of those if you need both. And a big consideration for me is whether or not the webinar software will allow you to embed the Facebook pixel. Because typically I'm driving ads traffic to the webinar registration page. And if I'm not able to add the Facebook pixel to that page and to a thank you page, I'm not going to be able to track registrations and tie that back to the ads in order to make good decisions on which ads are leading to the best cost per conversion or a cost per opt-in to that webinar. All of these factors will affect the price, and so it's a balancing act between all of these features. I don't think there's any one perfect webinar system. So it could be a place where you start with one and start small and grow into a more expensive package. Now let's talk about my favorite webinar platforms. I know there's a lot out there and I haven't tried all of them, but I'm going to just list the ones that I've tried and like. First of all is Zoom. Zoom is very easy and it helps if you already have some of the Zoom features that you're paying for. A lot of times, adding in a webinar option isn't that expensive. It's a great place to start for new people. The registration page isn't as customizable as I would like, but you can add the Facebook pixel in a way so that you're tracking opt ins to your Zoom webinar. Another platform is ClickMeeting. I've used this and it's a good platform. You can embed the Facebook pixel in there and it has some decent looking landing pages. I've also used Demio. Demio is another great platform. I like some of the features that they have with how the chat appears and how you can share things. The landing page is a little bit basic, but it's decent. And again, you can embed the Facebook pixel there. One of my favorite platforms is Webinar Jam. It is a little more expensive. You do have to pay for a year-long membership to Webinar Jam, but I really like some of the features it has with how the landing pages can look. And of course, you can put the pixel in there and it's got some really good customizable parts to it. And it's always hard to try some of these, but a lot of them will have a trial period. So you can test it out and see how customizable it is for you. And maybe even get a webinar in your belt with that platform and see how it works. In any case, I highly recommend running webinars to grow your business. So give it a try and see how it works for you.
Hope that was helpful, and make sure you grab the free guide, Top Tools for Late Starters, on the website at latestartersclub.com. And let's turn dreaming into doing.